We're joined in studio by Charles Hunt. He's a political scientist at Boise State University in Idaho. He's in Vancouver for an annual meeting of the American Political Science Association, and the theme of this year's meeting is reimagining politics, power, and peoplehood in crisis times. Good morning to you.
Thanks for having me, Stephen.
Thank you for being here. Kind of a coincidence that here you are talking about something that is very much related to what we've seen unfold in the United States for the past couple of days. What was your reaction when you heard about the news this morning?
I mean, I've been sort of following what's been going on the past couple of days, and particularly the signals that we are getting from political elites in the United States, including the president and including Governor Cox, who I think has shown some pretty extraordinary, at least rhetorical leadership at this time. I think sending the right kind of message to young people. You know, I'm a college professor. I spend a lot of time with young college-age students, including young men, and, you know, it was really tragic for me to see so many of the young people of the sort I teach every day witness such a horrific thing. And so I do think it's really important to send a message to them right now, and that's something a lot of us are talking about at this conference, how to talk to young people about this political moment and how we can chart a better way forward.
A Democratic state representative in Minnesota was shot and killed earlier this year, along with her husband. State senator and her wife were shot and wounded as well. Trump himself, of course, has been the target of violence. We saw Nancy Pelosi's husband beaten. What does all of this say about where we are when it comes to political discourse in the United States right now?
We're a deeply divided, deeply polarized country in the U.S. We have been for quite some time, and it's been getting worse for quite some time. And one thing we know from political science is that the more that each side, one side or the other, sees the other side as different, as other, as different on all sorts of measures, whether it's ideology or race or gender or any of these other critical identities, the way we think about ourselves, that makes it easier for us to see them as less than human, and we see elites sometimes doing the opposite of what Governor Cox was doing and using dehumanizing language, calling people animals and things like that. This makes it easier for people to see a path, you know, if they're having problems in their own life, to see a path towards violence and taking these kinds of heinous actions like we saw the other day. And so I do think it's really important for us to call that kind of language out when we see it, and to recognize that this is not, you know, as President Trump was saying on a morning show on Fox News this morning, that, oh, this is only a problem of the left. This is not only a problem of the left. This is a problem of our political culture writ large.
Well, and you know, we've seen it before. I'm just looking at a message here on Blue Sky, and this is from an American who says State Department State Department to ban immigrants speaking ill of Charlie Kirk. VP to fly his body to Arizona on Air Force Two, which is true. Trump to award him the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Journalists getting fired for asking the right questions. We are spiraling into a dystopia beyond our imagining.
I mean, it's pretty dark language. I mean, I think it's really important in these moments to not sort of steer into the spiraling if we possibly can. One thing we know that I think a lot of us can agree on is that more violence just begets more violence, that these are lessons we learned from Martin Luther King Jr. and others, and that political violence can act as a match being lit to a fuse, that, you know, if you see someone beloved like Charlie Kirk on the right being attacked, being killed, then maybe other folks will see that as justification to engage in their own kind of violence. And we can't go down that road. It's absolutely essential that we don't. You know, I think we understand that the political situation in the U.S. is not one where suddenly everyone's going to be, you know, holding hands and singing Kumbaya, but it is one where we need to make serious efforts not to tip over the edge in the other direction, and to, you know, fight against those instincts of ours, which is to immediately point fingers of blame, which plenty of people were doing even before we knew anything about this killer this morning.
But all of that is coming from the very top. I mean,
Sure.
That is the brand of Donald Trump and the sycophants he surrounded himself with.
I have to say, you know, of all the people I would want to be in charge at a moment like this, he's not the person I would necessarily choose from a political perspective. I mean, this has been his MO from the beginning. You know, he was in his Oval Office address just the other day, the night of the killing. He called out a number of instances of political violence, left out a number of the ones you just mentioned,
Yes.
Stephen, against Democratic and left-leaning politicians and figures, and that's notable. He blamed radical left violence for what happened
Before he had any idea who the shooter was.
Yeah, that's really sort of dangerous behavior coming from the top. And one thing we know from political science is that it is signals from the top, from political elites and from people like President Trump, who a lot of folks on the right really look up to, that can really fan the flames of this kind of violence. So I hope he'll take different paths in the future, and I hope he'll follow the example of people like Governor Cox, also a Republican, who I think has shown extraordinary rhetorical leadership at this time.
We've seen a Fox News commentator, basically talk about civil war, or a borderline try to incite a civil war in his commentary. That's arguable, of course. We've seen an MSNBC commentator fired
Yes.
for suggesting that it could have been Charlie Kirk's own rhetoric that brought this upon him.
Neither of those statements are helpful in any way, shape, or form. I think we can say that for sure. Charlie Kirk, it's important not to sort of change history about who he was. He was a very divisive figure. He said many controversial things.
He was a bigot.
He had yes. I mean, he went to these college campuses and would really, his brand of politics was to deliberately push people's buttons, seemed to get a lot of glee out of pushing the buttons of the left and saying incredibly incendiary things. But I think it's important to remember that, as an American, the reason I know I'm able to say whatever I want in my country is that Charlie Kirk was able to say whatever he wanted without fear of violence, and that was violated. And so I think it's important to sort of recognize that while not changing history and pretending that he was someone that he is not, because that also would not be sort of engaging in that right kind of speech.
Are you able to say what you want in your country?
Oh, I think I am. I mean, I feel comfortable saying what I want right now and speaking.
You're in
speaking
Canada
my
right
truth.
now.
Well, that's a good point. No, I mean, I'm in a college classroom all the time. I speak to students, and I never feel like I'm muzzled in what I say to them. My job is to tell my students the facts, talk about the political realities, talk about who is at fault for what when we know who is at fault, to talk about things like, whether or not the 2020 election was stolen, for example. We know that it wasn't, right? And so these are truths that I have to talk about with my students. And for the most part, my students model good behavior on these things a lot better than a lot of adult Americans I know.
Charlie Kirk believed the 2020 election was stolen.
Right. And so, our job as educators is to talk about the opposite, right? To talk about what actually happened, and to, the First Amendment in the United States, protects you in terms of your free speech, and it protects you if you want to say things that aren't true. Lying isn't against the law, and it certainly isn't justification for being killed. But it also means that as we go forward to what Governor Cox was saying, we have to be really clear-eyed and speak the truth and talk about what has actually happened here so that this kind of incident isn't repeated.
Charles, good to meet you. Thank you so much for coming in. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Charles Hunt joins us in studio today, political science professor from Boise State University, visiting Vancouver for the American Political Science Association's annual meeting this week.